Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're going to learn about another Australian animal, and that animal is the platypus. Platypus is a super unique animal. There's really nothing else quite like it, so it's pretty interesting. All right, so what's that? This weird but cute mammal? It's a platypus. So it says long bill, furry body, big feet. And we can also notice that the author chose to do some interesting things when they were saying it has a long bill. They kind of stretched out that word long to make it long. When they said it has a furry body, they kind of made the text look a little bit furry. And when it says big feet, they made that word big super big. So sometimes authors will change how the font looks so that it matches what they're saying. So that's kind of neat. So here's a platypus. So they've got that long bill, but they've got a furry body, and then they have big feet. A platypus is very strange looking. It has a wide, flat tail like a beaver. So here, this yellow arrow is pointing right here to its tail. It also has a bill like a duck, yet the bill is soft and leathery. So here's the bill right here on its front. And it says in this pink box, a platypus can grow up to 20 inches long. That's about as big as a cat. So a platypus is not a very large animal. Platypuses live only in Australia. They spend lots of time in lakes and rivers. So the platypus digs burrows near the water, and a platypus is coming out of a burrow in this picture right here. So they're very camouflaged with their surroundings, and they live only in Australia, which is, of course, the continent that we have been learning about this week. Splash. The little mammals are great swimmers. They have webbed feet to paddle through the water. They can steer with their tail. The platypus comes to the surface every few minutes to take a breath of air. So, platypus is not like a fish. They cannot breathe underwater. They have to return up to air to get water, just like we do when we swim. But they're super good swimmers. They have those webbed feet that we can see right here that act as like big flippers for them so they can swim around really well. Platypuses hunt for food in the water. They search for tadpoles, crayfish, and worms. So we know what a worm looks like. Here's a worm, there's a little tadpole, and here's a crayfish. The platypus closes its eyes in the muddy water. It uses its sense of touch to hunt. So, if you remember way back in the beginning of kindergarten, we talked about our five senses. So, let's see if we can remember them. We have touch, like they just talked about, smell, we smell with our nose, taste with our mouth, sight, see with our eyes, and hear with our ears. So the platypus, kind of like when we're swimming underwater, you probably don't want to swim around with your eyes open unless you have goggles on. Same with the platypus. So they close their eyes and they just use their sense of touch to hunt for food. The platypus moves its bill from side to side as it hunts. All animals give off weak electrical signals. That's a very neat fact. The platypus's bill is very sensitive. It can pick up electrical signals, so it can actually detect where other animals are, just with its bill. And here in this little pink box, it says, when a platypus touches an animal or senses that it's near, it attacks. So there it is with a crayfish in its mouth. Look out. Animals such as lizards, foxes, and pythons hunt platypuses. So remember we talked about how it's like a food chain and how each animal eats another animal and that animal eats another animal, and it's a big long chain. So we just learned that platypus eats crayfish and worms. And now we know that lizards, foxes, and pythons, they're on top of a platypus on the food chain. They eat the platypus. Hiding underwater or in burrows helps the little creatures to stay safe. So the male platypus has venomous spurs on its back legs. It can use the spurs to fight off enemies. So here is a picture of a spur right here. So it actually does have a venomous spur that it can use to help protect itself. In the spring, male and female platypuses mate. After mating, the female digs a nesting burrow. The female lays 1 to 3 eggs in the burrow. Most mammals give birth to live young, but platypuses lay eggs. And there's a picture of a couple of platypus eggs. So they're the only mammal to lay eggs. Most mammals have live birth. That's what makes them really unique and really different. About 12 days later, the babies hatch. They drink their mother's milk. So remember, every mammal drinks their mother's milk. That's one of the characteristics of being a mammal. But most mammals give birth to live young. So this is a really special situation because they lay their eggs, but then their babies still drink the mother's milk. So most other animals that lay eggs, like birds and such, they do not drink their mother's milk. They go straight into eating worms and things like that. So then in this pink box, it says the babies stay with their mother for about 4 months. Then they leave to live on their own. So 4 months, that's still really teeny tiny, especially for a human baby. All right, here we're at the back of our book, and it's telling us about a few more weird mammals. Some you might say weird, I would just say different. So we have the echidnas, and echidnas, that's this top one, says they're also called spiny anteaters. Echidnas and platypuses are the only mammals that lay eggs. Oopsie, I didn't even know that an echidna lays an egg, so something new for me. An opossum. So the female possum carries her babies in a pouch, just like a kangaroo. When a large animal threatens an opossum, it pretends to be dead. This is called playing possum. And here's a pangolin. So the pangolin is the only mammal covered in scales. When an animal like a lion threatens it, the pangolin rolls up in a ball for protection. That's a pretty neat thing to do. So here's a pangolin. So here's our glossary, which we have at the end of every informational nonfiction text, or most of them at least. And it tells us about the different words that we learned in this book. So first is a burrow. So a burrow is a hole or a tunnel dug in the ground by some animals for shelter. So you might have been walking and kind of seen a burrow, and maybe it's a rabbit, maybe it's a snake that lives in there. But if you just see a big hole, that's usually a burrow. Then you have a mammal, a warm-blooded animal that has hair or fur and drinks its mother's milk as a baby. Then you have the word mate, which means to come together in order to have young, and venomous, which means full of poison. All right, so then we have our other text features. We have our index, which tells us what pages we can find out about different things on, has a couple more books that we could read if we're interested, somewhere to go if we want to learn more online or learn more about the author. So thanks y'all for coming and learning about the platypus. I hope that you guys have a wonderful Thursday and enjoyed learning about this very unique animal from Australia. See y'all later.